Chapter 5, the infectious process and environmental control. So children's risk factors when it comes to disease, uh, they have higher risk factors because they have less time to develop antibodies, and antibodies are the substances that protect us from disease. They have immature body structures, their brain, their internal organs and their lungs are not fully developed. They're more likely to be in group settings. Their frequent contact with things that others touch or mouth. And of course, their children's habits of putting things in their mouth. They're careless about body secretions. They lie down on everything and roll on the floor, and they put things in their face and in their mouth, of course. There are three components that are required for an illness to be communicable or passed from one to another. A pathogen is needed, and that's a microorganism that causes the illness. A susceptible host or individual, someone who's vulnerable to the illness. And then some sort of method of transmission, and that differs depending on the disease. It might transmit through a break in the skin, through the respiratory tract, or from the digestive tract. So what makes an illness communicable? Again, you start with a pathogen, you have the method of transmission, and then the susceptible host. So there is a picture of what we just talked about. So how do we control infectious illness? Well, we have to understand the three components, about how the three components interact to cause an illness. And to be communicable is essential for limiting its spread. And teachers and professionals that work with children have an ethical and professional responsibility to protect the wellness of all the children in their care in a group setting. So pathogens or organisms like viruses, parasites, bacteria, or fungi can be transmitted in several ways. They can be airborne. It can be transmitted through the air. It can be fecal-oral, which is transmitted from feces to the mouth. It can be direct contact or indirect contact. And you can find out more about this on page 115 of your textbook. And this, on page 115, it'll also give you information about what are some examples of illness that are transmitted by each of these different methods. So the stages of an infectious illness include the incubation period, and this is the time between exposure and the first symptoms of an illness, and they're usually contagious before the symptoms appear, and that's one of the issues with communicable diseases is you can transmit a disease before you even know you have it. The prodromal period, this is the time between non-specific symptoms like sore throats or headaches, and then the symptoms specific to a particular disease. The acute phase, this is the specific illness symptoms and contagious, and you are still contagious. And then convalescent, this is the gradual disappearance of the symptoms. So how do we control infectious diseases or illnesses? We can do our ongoing health observations. This can provide early clues about a child's changing state of health. And we can look on page 117 for more about this. Policies should be in place to address a variety of protective measures, such as exclusion guidelines, cleaning procedures, diapering procedures, food preparation, and hand washing. And so below you'll see examples of all of those things we just mentioned: exclusion policies, exposure letters, administration of medicines, those kinds of things. So immunizations should be current and required for children and teachers. And so I did mention in the previous chapter that you cannot avoid immunizations for children just because of personal preference anymore. And there are new laws in California that require that anyone working in the care and supervision of children in a licensed program in California must not only have their TB clearance, but they also have to have whooping cough vaccinations and measles, and then flu shot. Flu shot is the only one that you can deny, although you can, for medical reasons, show with proof, show that you cannot secure the other two. And on page 123 of your book, it has more general information about immunizations. We also can take environmental measures. We can use the universal infection control precautions for handling body fluids, and you can find those steps on page 124 of your book. This also includes practicing correct hand washing techniques and washing your hands at appropriate times. And you again can find the hand washing procedures on page 126 and specific details about diapering on 127, and then toilet training also on page 127. Also, we want to clean and disinfect eating and food preparation areas, the bathroom, diapering tables, toys, and equipment. And we want to arrange rooms to minimize extended periods of close contact. We want to maintain comfortable room temperatures, and we want to open doors and windows for fresh air. We want to take special precautions with sandboxes, pools, water tables, and also we should use hand washing with Play-Doh and other sensory items. We also want to teach children, teachers, and families about infectious illness and effective control measures. When caring for a mildly ill child, some things you have to consider is the illness highly contagious? Will other children be at risk? Does the child feel well enough to participate? Does the child's illness place them at greater risk of catching something else? And can teachers meet the child's needs as well as those of other children in attendance?